I already covered Series 8 of Red Dwarf a while back, and my overall thoughts were not very positive, it's fair to say. But there's one episode I didn't really get to touch on in that video because I felt it deserves its own separate review, and that episode is Cassandra. The interesting thing about Cassandra is that while the consensus among fans of Red Dwarf seems to be that Series 8 is pretty terrible, this episode is the one exception as it is generally held in quite high regard. Although I don't entirely agree with this perception, and we'll get on to why, I can kind of understand where it comes from, and that's going to be the focus of today's discussion. The episode opens with Lister being told by Holly that in order to speed up his sentence in the tank, he should become a dog. While this gag has nothing to do with the rest of the episode, it does at least serve as a shorthand way of re-establishing the new status quo for viewers who might have missed the opening three-parter. That being said, as I stated in the series overview, I'm not particularly fond of the way that Series 8 tends to treat Holly solely as a device for dispensing one-liners, and this is one such example. There then follows an exchange with Rimmer in which we find out that all of our main characters have been signed up for the Canaries, who are essentially a team of disposable mercenaries who scout out dangerous places before the important people are allowed in. Their first mission is to investigate a shipwreck with a mysteriously absent crew, and it's on this ship where they discover the titular computer who is supposedly able to predict the future with 100% accuracy. The fact the episode has a high-concept sci-fi idea at the core of it as opposed to the dwarfers playing basketball or whatever the hell it was Crikey TV is about, I believe is key to why it is considered superior to the rest of the series. Red Dwarf has always been a science fiction show as much as it is a comedy. I mean, just look at the fan base. No other sitcom that I can think of has acquired such a nerdy cult following. But it's not just the sci-fi element that is reminiscent of classic Red Dwarf. Once the cast enter the shipwreck, the episode essentially transitions into a claustrophobic base under siege story centered almost exclusively around the five main protagonists. If you took out all of the stuff about the Canaries, then it could easily be adapted to fit into the format of Series 5 or 6, with the crew just happening to stumble across the crashed vessel while out on Starbug, and I think that's also a large factor in why this episode was more positively received. It just feels more like Red Dwarf again. Having said all of that though, Cassandra does unfortunately still have some of the worst hallmarks of Series 8, particularly in its third act. We get some heavy exploration of the theme of predeterminism in similar fashion to the Space Museum, as Rimmer learns he will not make it off the ship alive. After various failed attempts to avert his future, Rimmer is eventually resigned to his fate and asks Cassandra how he will die, at which point Cassandra replies that he will be shot with a harpoon gun by Lister while making love to Kochanski. Now this line in of itself is pretty funny, because the notion is so absurd and comes out of nowhere, especially given that all of Cassandra's predictions have up until this point been quite plausible and in one way or another have come true. Of course, we do later find out that Cassandra has been lying to everyone in order to try and manipulate events and punish Lister for being the one who destroys her, which is plausible enough as an explanation provided you don't think about it too hard. As like in the Backwards Universe episode, it starts to fall apart under any close logical scrutiny, since surely if Cassandra can see the future, she would know that her attempt at getting Rimmer and Kochanski together would not work. What is of more concern to me though is how Rimmer reacts to this new information. Apparently no longer worried that he is about to die, he instead celebrates, and okay, there are possibly worse ways to go out, but what bothers me is that up until this point in the series, Rimmer has shown basically no interest in Kochanski whatsoever. I'm not going to say it's necessarily out of character for Rimmer to have this reaction given his past attitude toward women, but it really kind of feels like the only reason he wants to sleep with Kochanski all of a sudden is because she's an attractive woman and he's a man, and of course he does because all men are obsessed with sex, which is just one of the worst tropes in fiction that can absolutely go die. I've said before that Doug Naylor had a very juvenile mindset when writing Series 8, and the sequence that follows perfectly exemplifies that. I honestly found this part of the episode quite difficult to sit through when re-watching it for this review. Granted, I'm not really into cringe comedy anyway, so that doesn't help, but the way Naylor has such a casual, flippant attitude toward the notion of consent really just makes my skin crawl. I've seen some people quote the line about Kochanski getting blind drunk and her response that it doesn't excuse her other four senses as being a classic Red Dwarf gag, but again it just makes me feel uncomfortable since, you know, men taking advantage of women being intoxicated is something that actually does happen in real life and it's terrifying. Okay, so you could argue that Rimmer is written to be an asshole and he's not supposed to be sympathetic when he comes out with stuff like this, but I still get the distinct impression there is a complete lack of self-awareness as to just how disturbing the implications are of what he just said, especially given how the concept of non-consensual sex is generally treated as a punchline throughout the rest of the series. See, this is how you can tell the episode is written by a man and not a woman, because if it had been a woman writing this scene, Kochanski would be fearing for her safety and wanting to get away from this creep as quickly as possible. Luckily for everyone involved, Lister intervenes before it goes any further, and in the final scene he vows that he will not in fact destroy Cassandra, before inadvertently killing her anyway through a mousetrap-style chain of events which serves as a strong closing gag and nicely rounds off the theme of predeterminism. Overall, I get why Cassandra has the reputation it does. As a story, it is far more focused and better paced than the rest of the series, coupled to the fact that it has a strong sci-fi concept at its core. But sadly, it just wouldn't be a Red Dwarf Series 8 episode without some icky stuff, and while maybe not quite as messed up or problematic as some of the other examples in the series, the juvenile humour of the third act still makes for an uncomfortable viewing experience, and it's this more than anything else which ultimately brings the episode down. This is Midnight Chimes, still waiting for the last train home. If you would like to support this channel, then head over to my eBay store Cult Coven, where I sell books, media and other nerdy things. Leave a message with your order and you can even get a shout out in my next video.